chair recognizes Representative Meng for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to ask about gun trafficking. Last April, the president called for the release of a new gun trafficking report, which is welcome news because the public and policymakers have largely been in the dark when it comes to the source of illegal guns and the trafficking channels used to supply them. ATF used to provide cities with data and analysis on the source of illegal guns, releasing 50 reports that helped shed light on interventions to stop the illegal flow of guns. Do you know, or can you provide an update on when the report will be released, whether we'll be seeing concrete data and analysis on where these guns, illegal guns, are coming from, and a commitment to work with cities like my home city of New York to provide city-specific analysis?
Well, you're quite right. It's been a very long time since ATF has produced this kind of report. That's why we determined last year that ATF would get back in the business of producing these reports. I believe that they've organized this into sort of 3 volumes of report in order to get to the first volume out as soon as possible. So my understanding is they're using May as a target date, sometime in May, to produce the first volume of the gun trafficking report. The next one by the end of the year, and I'm not sure when the third one will be.
And then if I could also ask, community gun violence is a public health crisis that disproportionately impacts our Black communities, reflecting our nation's racial inequities and underinvestment in communities of color. The pandemic has also had a pronounced impact on gun violence in the US as homicides increase to record levels. This kind of violence undermines community confidence in safety, depresses economic recovery, and restricts community development and opportunity. President Biden's proposed budget includes $500 million in support for community violence intervention programs, $250 million of which would be dedicated to CVI work at the DOJ. Can you talk about the importance of community-based violence intervention programs in reducing gun violence and building resilience in our communities, and why it's important for both the CDC and the Department of Justice to be involved in this effort?
Yes, I'd be happy to talk about that. I've personally visited community violence interrupters in Chicago and in New York City. Indeed, extremely successful program in Chicago. The head of that, Eddie Bocanegra, is going to be in our Office of Justice programs. Sometimes that's a good thing. You take somebody who's really successful in the community and then you bring him to Washington. But he's assured us that he has good replacements. These programs have been quite successful. The one in New York was also very successful in almost totally eliminating gun violence for a year or two. After they immediately started. These are basically, they bring in people who have been previously incarcerated and been involved in gangs and have wanted to go straight and wanted to persuade members in their community to do that, with wraparound services to help people stay in the community, stay away from the gangs and the crews. And stay away from violence, visiting hospitals so that they come across victims who might turn around and retaliate and persuade them not to do so. The University of Chicago actually did a study of the Chicago community violence interrupters and found in an amazing statistical random study between those who have the benefit of assistance and those who didn't, a material reduction in violence, particularly gun violence. So we believe these are effective programs. They have to be done. The question is, can we bring them to scale? But we can spread them across the country. And it's one more way in which we're trying to fight the scourge of violent crime in our communities.
Yeah, and I want to thank you publicly, Mr. Attorney General, for coming to New York City after 2 of our honorable police officers were killed, and just for visiting important programs like the one you mentioned. And also your team working so closely with us to address ways to decrease and eliminate discrimination and violence against Asian Americans as well. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you, Representative Meng. At this time, the chair recognizes Representative Stephen Palazzo for 5 minutes.